11:30 Pacific on the hour. So I think we're ready to get started. If you have any questions during this presentation, I do want to let you know to drop them in the chat. And if I don't get to them right during the presentation, I will speak to them at the end. And we are just really excited that you're here today to learn all about some effective legal marketing tactics that don't require much of your time. So if this is your first time here at one of our marketing mentor sessions, I just want to reiterate that we are here talking about marketing, which from my standpoint is a numbers game. We want to get a certain number of qualified eyeballs looking at our marketing assets, to get a certain number of qualified leads, to get a certain number of clients. So as we're presenting specific topics here on Marketing Mentor, I am always filtering what we're sharing through this kind of formula. And our goal here is to make law firm growth simpler by making online marketing simpler. There are so many different ways you can market your firm. And as we hinted at in the title, it can take up a lot of your time. And we're really looking at what strategies can you employ to market your firm that don't require as much of you, so that you can focus on the things in your firm that only you can do. So this is what I like to call the Better Business Growth Framework, or the Better Law Firm Growth Framework. But essentially, I am always looking at marketing strategies in three ways. One, are they bringing leads our way? Two, are we qualifying their leads? So you probably have had the experience where you've gotten on the phone with a lead who's not the right fit for your firm, because either they're too early on in the process, they don't have the budget, maybe they're looking for something that's completely different than what you offer, right? So I'm looking at how do we qualify those leads, because it's not enough just to bring leads into the firm, but we also want to make sure they're the right quality. And then last but not least, I'm always looking at, does this marketing strategy nurture our leads? Meaning, most people aren't ready to make a purchasing decision right away. They need a few touch points before they're ready to do that. So how are we staying top of mind? And so the reason I emphasize this framework here, because I think it's important for you to filter all marketing strategies through this framework, because so often we focus only on lead generation. Am I bringing more people into my world? Am I bringing more people into my world? And many times I find you may already have enough people in your world, and you just need to do a better job qualifying and nurturing them and moving them through that buying process. Or more typically, I see it's a combination of both. We need to better qualify and better nurture, and we need to bring more people into our world. So with that being said, we're going to cover a few tactics today that touch on all three of these points here. Okay, so I'd just love to know in the chat, like, you're busy, you're probably very busy. I imagine almost none of you feel like, oh, I have all this extra time to do marketing. But, you know, in an ideal world, if you could create this marketing machine or marketing system that worked either without you or with you only in a tiny piece of it, I'd just love to hear, does that sound like something that would be an ideal solution for you? Like, would you love to have a system that brings new leads into the business, but doesn't require so much of you? And okay, Jean's saying yes, yes, yes. Okay, great. And Kevin, if you don't mind just dropping down your chat to panelists and attendees so everyone can see this. Alan, of course, great. So I hear this a lot. I know Car and Mike hear this a lot, is I don't have time to do all of these marketing strategies that are being recommended to me, or what can I outsource or offload to someone else, because I need to be focused on running the firm, working through cases, talking to clients. So I can't be, you know, employed as a full-time marketer for my business. I need to be doing some marketing, but also taking care of the rest of the firm. So today we are going to cover three tactics that require none or very little of you, and are effective, proven ways to market any sort of law firm, no matter what your practice specialty is. So tactic number one that we're going to talk about today is short videos distributed on social media. So I don't know if you guys have been following what's going to kind of been happening in the social media world, and we can talk about that in a second. But when we shoot videos that are less than 30 seconds long, they can be shot in bulk. So it's a very efficient use of your time, especially if you're the one on the video. And then everything else that happens beyond that the editing and scheduling doesn't have to happen by you. Someone else can edit those videos, and then they can schedule those videos for distribution on all channels ahead of time. So in this instance, I like to think of you, the attorney, as the talent who shows up for the video shoot, and then everything else happens by your team or another team. And all of a sudden, all these videos featuring you are being promoted on your social media channels, but you don't have to be involved in everything that happens beyond the shoot. And the thing I like about batching or shooting in bulk is that you can say, okay, if you plan ahead of time, you can say, okay, once a month, once every 3 months, I'm showing up for this shoot, but then I'm not involved in this process at all beyond that. So you can set some dedicated time on your calendar, and you know it happens consistently every 30 days, every 90 days. But beyond that, all of the system just works without you. Alex, yes, we will be sending the recording to this presentation a little later on, so you'll be able to see the slides during the recording. Okay, so why do we want to shoot videos for social media? One, you can stand out from the competition. It is challenging to shoot videos, and we'll talk about some ways to make that easier. So just by shooting a video and having regular videos go out on social media, you're going to stand out from your competition. Second, you get to educate your prospects, and you get to convey your expertise on video in a way that is really hard to do in written content. I think written content is great, but me watching you for 30 seconds is going to give me a feel for your personality, how authoritative you are in your subject matter, whether I think you can help me with my problem. So this is where that kind of qualification comes in. Not only can we generate leads from social videos, but you can also qualify leads because you're putting specific messages in front of them in that video content. And then video really allows you to speed up the sales process because people get to know, like, and trust you a little bit faster. So think about when you receive emails, I don't know, from a brand, from a business that you like, versus meeting someone in person and spending 30 minutes with them. I like to think of video as a way to do that, as a way to speed up the relationship building, but you don't have to be in person at a coffee shop, at your office, meeting all these people one-on-one. So video really allows you to accelerate that relationship without you having to be involved in a non-scalable way. So almost every single social platform that's out there is prioritizing short video. So Facebook, certainly in their feed, they also recently released Reels, maybe just a couple weeks ago. Instagram has Reels. They also have Stories, which are short videos, and they also have short videos in their feed. If you're on TikTok, that is definitely a short video, and LinkedIn is also prioritizing short videos. So to some degree on social media, you need to play the game that the social platforms are playing, which is, let me give them content that they are going to put higher in the feed so that more people see it. And I find that the earlier you jump on these trends, the more momentum you can build more quickly, because it typically takes people a while to jump on the trend. And I would say, especially in the legal industry, and I'll let you speak to this, Cara, a little bit, but it's you don't have to be the first adopter in order to still be an early adopter. Cara, do you have any comments on that about using videos in the social feed? Yep.
Yeah. I mean, just, social videos, it's all about being authentic, right? Being genuine, sort of letting your personality shine through. Like you said, Lauren, it's so much easier to convey that, with a short 30-second video than really any other way. It's the easiest way to distinguish yourself, for sure. And that's really the key, especially when we're talking about these short sort of awareness videos, right? So when you're trying to get people's attention, you shouldn't only be talking about your area of practice. In fact, that kind of content should really, be reserved for those followers who already are familiar with you, who already trust you to some extent, right? And Laura and I often talk about Ali Awad. He's a CEO lawyer on Instagram. He does this really, really well over his, over 1 million followers on Instagram or something like that. But he runs a really high volume personal injury firm in Atlanta. And he says, his most popular posts are the ones, with his wife, the videos with his wife. He does some car wreck, sort of dash cam videos that he talks about. He posts motivational quotes, right? So it's really about, post about your family, post about your hobbies, create that awareness, then look for that engagement, then that conversion, right? So you're not, you need to provide, there needs to be some reason for people to care about what you're saying on social, right? You can't just go straight for, here's why I am the best attorney, right? So just, kind of keep that in mind when, especially, if you're just starting out. It's not all about, just answering those questions that you get, which of course that is a great, that's great content that comes, with as you're sort of building your following, but being genuine, having that nice mix of content and not overthinking it. I mean, we're talking about 30-second videos. You can pull out your phone and really talk about, whatever's going on in your firm and your life. So, that I kind of wanted to reinforce what Lauren was saying about that, because so often we run into firms that are just, they're, nervous, they're apprehensive to start. So they never do, they want to create these perfect videos and then, not much happens. So, Lauren, I wanted to ask you though, because so many of the attorneys we talk to are very early stages, right? Either they're just kind of dabbling with social, they're trying to maybe find their voice, maybe they haven't even quite created profiles. So where would you say attorneys should start? If they're just kind of testing the waters, where either a platform or, what do you recommend for those early starters?
Sure. So I have a couple recommendations, and then I'm going to speak to some of the questions here in the chat that are along those same lines. So first, I would pick a platform or a couple platforms that have very similar mediums and stick to those. Like, don't spread yourself too thin, because so often the approach to social media is I'm just going to publish and pray that people find me, but I'm not going to actually do what is required of being successful on social media, which is being social. So being social means you have to engage with your followers. You have to move likes and comments to a direct message so you can continue to have a conversation that may lead to a sale. And so if you're trying to do that on 6 different platforms, it's very hard to do well. And it also depends on the team you have available. So I'm assuming if you're early on, there's not going to be a lot of team to help you. So I would pick 1 or 2 platforms where your target audience is spending their time and stick to that. And then second, I would consider what are the content pillars that I'm going to primarily post about. So I'll give you an example. And Cara mentioned this so well when she talks about the stages of awareness, and we do have a past marketing mentor session on this. So I will make sure that gets out to you guys in the replay, but our goal is to move people through the buying process. And that doesn't mean only promotional videos about our firm, right? So when we think about content pillars, that allows us to always know what kind of category a piece of content buckets into. And when we sit down and plan our month or plan our next 90 days worth of content, we also makes it easier because we don't have that blank page syndrome. And it allows you to say, hey, these are the 3 or these are the 5 things I talk about on social media. And I don't really veer from those. Maybe there's subcategories under each of these, but I don't talk about anything else. So for example, one content pillar might be lifestyle. So in that case, like Cara mentioned, we're using that to attract people and to capture their attention, not necessarily to start a sales conversation, but we're just trying to start any conversation with them. Are they even interested enough to take the next step? So within lifestyle, you may have a couple categories. Like Stacy mentioned, maybe you have a cute puppy, right? So that's something you post about once in a while. And when I say post, I don't mean, hey, it's a feed full of your puppy's photos. It's like, hey, that might be a 1-second story that goes out for the day and then disappears. It's not about, hey, all I talk about is my puppy. It's just about capturing someone's attention. You may also talk about family if that's an important value. And for example, maybe you're have a family practice. Okay, great. That would be very in line with what you do. So lifestyle might be one content pillar. Another might be client testimonials. which we'll talk about in a second. And then another might be, a couple different categories related to your practice specialty. And that might be what you post about. So maybe it's divorce, maybe it's child custody, and then maybe it's team, right? So you're posting about your team a little bit to get people to know people, staff besides you, so you're not the only unicorn in the office who can serve them. So in short, I would pick your platform and I would pick some content pillars and I would use that to start posting. And I wouldn't get too caught up in high production value. That's not what's doing that well anyways on social media. Too produced feels too much like an advertisement. We're shooting a video like this. I don't know if you can see my hand, but kind of a selfie style video is something that people tend to respond to. So I wouldn't overthink it, and I would get started because you will get feedback from what people like on social media, and then you know what to double down on and what to not do so much of. And I would say in general, expect things like that's designed to capture someone's attention, lifestyle, team, that sort of stuff is always going to get more engagement than anything promotional, and that's okay. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get high engagement for anything that's designed to capture attention. And then that way more people see the promotional content. So that's kind of the name of the game. So it's okay if you're like, oh my gosh, I got 25 times more engagement on this lifestyle post versus, 5 times less engagement over here. That's just kind of the name of the game and what we should expect. So I feel like sometimes people get discouraged because they're like, oh my gosh, no one commented, no one liked on that one post that was very promotional. People are still paying attention, and you can always reach out to people who are following and engaging with you through a direct message, through a private message on Facebook. And I think often that's time that gets missed too, which is I should be responding to people regularly and I should be moving them to a private conversation. Okay, so Cara, did that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, Lauren, that strategy is so spot on, right? And I love that you really simplified it, because sometimes it can seem like Lem, says in the chat, like perfectly, how do we kind of make these videos entertaining? It's not necessarily about, making the substantive content entertaining, right? It's about the mix. It's about those pillars that Lauren's talking about, so that when you do talk about, the common questions that you get, and you really do kind of address those, those directly, you have more ears, right? You just have more, more eyeballs. You have more people who are paying attention to that, even though it might be a fraction of, the number that are liking your puppy photo, right? But that is the name of the game. And that if you look, time and time again, there are so many great examples of this out there. Ollie is probably, one of the best, but, we could put a list together so you can get some inspiration from people who are doing it really well. And I think you'll see, the common through line, the trend is, exactly what Lauren just described. And I think it can be a challenge sometimes for some of the attorneys that I talk to really, they really try and separate kind of their personal lives and their professional firm, right? And that's the exact opposite of what you should actually be presenting if we're looking to gain that trust and gain that connection and really blur that line a little bit, because that is what it's all about. When someone does need you, they want to go to someone that they trust, someone they feel familiar with, and this is the way to do it. So Lauren, I'll let you, there's a couple more questions. I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah. So Lem, there's this concept called edutainment, where it's like you're educating and you're entertaining simultaneously. And I would just encourage you to keep that in mind. And yes, lawyer content is so boring and self-serving, and can be so boring and self-serving. And the point is, it's not about you anymore. Social media content should be about your followers, about what they're interested in, about what's going to capture their attention. And to some degree, we have to make something that feels a little boring entertaining. And I think Ali Awad's a great example of this. Someone else is mentioning Alex Sue. There are ways for you to take something boring and make it a little more entertaining. And I would use the word entertaining a little loosely. I think sometimes that feels like, oh, we have to be funny. We don't always have to be funny. We could just be reviewing a hot topic that's captured people's attention. Like, let's say the Britney Spears case was really hot, I don't know how many months ago. But let's say like you work in that kind of specialty. Okay, you could just be commenting, Cara likes to say this a lot, about what you would do in this scenario. And that can still be entertaining without necessarily being funny. So I just want to take that pressure off. And I'll also say on the lifestyle that, hey, I want to keep these two things separate. I think be really clear on what you're okay with sharing on social media, lifestyle wise, and what you're not. So let's say you have a really interesting hobby, like you're a fly fisherman, or fly fisher woman in your spare time. Like that's something that might really intrigue people. So that might be something you share on social media, but you don't want to share anything to do with your family. Okay, great. Those are your boundaries, and that's absolutely okay. You don't have to share what you ate for breakfast and all your, anything going on in your personal life that you're not comfortable with. Just be clear up front. This is what I'm okay sharing. This is what I'm not. And then it makes it easier for you to say, this is good for social media. This is not. Okay. And Jean says, for example, yeah, you feel like you know a lot about Ali Awad through his posts. And that's because he's built that know, like, trust factor through everything that he's done on social media. And he doesn't feel like a stranger to you anymore. Okay. Carolyn, how do you encourage attorneys who are extremely hesitant to shoot video? Is there anything you can do to make it easier for them? Mike, I might pass this to you if you feel like that's a question you can answer.
Sure, of course. I think kind of going back to what you and Cara have been talking about, firstly, be yourself. I think that's a great way to start. You don't need to overthink the process. We were talking a little bit about what's the best way to communicate this versus this, and how many people are engaged versus that. Just starting out is a good way to do it. Be natural, talk about something that's near and dear to your heart. A great way to think about it is what makes you unique, right? You don't need to come in and sort of explain the entire back history of the law to this prospect who may just be meeting you for the first time. What makes your approach unique? What about you specifically? What is your background? What brought you to the law? These are things that almost everyone can communicate really clearly, and you don't need to overthink it. That being said, if you do need help sort of getting started, developing a script, knowing that you don't have to be on camera for the entire video. Maybe you can use slides or motion graphics or stock footage to cover yourself up while you read a script and sort of communicate helpful information. That's good to keep in mind too, because you don't need to be a rock star. You don't need to be a professional actor to get started with video. There's a lot of ways you can sort of get into the process very, very comfortably, even if you are not comfortable on camera all the time.
Yeah. And I'd also say, like, you can do an audio voiceover and be filming something else. So you don't even necessarily, while you're trying to get comfortable, you don't even necessarily have to show your face, and you can just pre-record an audio that gets overlaid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Mike, go ahead, Cara.
I would just add to that, it's completely natural to feel uncomfortable at first. So just know that, and know that the more you do it, I mean, I can say this from personal experience. Before the pandemic, I didn't really do a whole lot of, video presentations. Certainly, I was actually using the phone instead of Zoom for every single meeting, right? And now it's just second nature talking to this little camera up here, right? And I think, there's so much to be said for that. Try just, hit and record and just talking about your family, and you're not going to put it anywhere. Talk about something that you're very comfortable talking about, be it related to your practice or not. Just start doing it, get those, kind of some of those kinks out, and the whole process will just, come more naturally. I mean, Mike sits in on tons of video interviews every week. We provide Zoom shot videos for our subscribers. So, I mean, we see it firsthand. That's one of the kind of main goals of our sessions, to coach you kind of through, help you feel more comfortable, give you some tips so that you're able to kind of get through it. And it's pretty cool to see the growth month over month as we're continuing to shoot these videos for our subscribers. They come in, pretty hesitant. You know, they see they might get the first recordings back and say, oh my, the intro, I got to redo the intro. My hair looked crazy. You know, my voice was too high, really kind of a nitpicking. And then, you know, within a few months, it's like transformation. You know, they have gotten the practice, they're used to doing this. And, you know, so my biggest advice would be to do it, to practice, just like anything else. But.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Cara, if you can have someone interview you, so it feels a little more natural to you, I think that's also a really great way to get more comfortable. So they can be the one behind the camera recording and you're just answering questions. And with editing, almost anything can look a lot better than you think it's going to look after you record. So that would be my recommendation there. And then I do want to address Jill's question, which is somewhat related, but I want to address it now rather than later. She's talking about, and I don't think everyone can see this, so I'm going to post it here for everyone to see. I don't know if I can do that actually, but basically she's asking about censorship on Facebook. So anytime she's mentioning anything related to COVID, there's a disclaimer, or the vaccine. Okay. I'm going to give you like a hack without, you know, and then also encourage you to, you know, be smart about what you're sharing on social media. But instead of saying COVID in the full kind of COVID, you could say C, then a 0, and then V, and then number 1, and then D, or you could say C asterisk asterisk VID, or there's some ways you can get around it. Now, I'm sure Facebook and Instagram will get wise to that pretty soon too, but that would be kind of one way to get around it. Now, I wouldn't call it like a white hat tactic, but that would be my recommendation. Okay, so, and there are a few people raising their hands, and I just encourage you to put your questions in the chat, because I'm not going to be able to bring you all on right this second, or wait until the end of the Q&A. Okay, and Tom is asking about the use of music and copyrights. Mike, do you want to speak to that at all, or do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, fairly obviously, you can't go out and use something like a Led Zeppelin clip or Aerosmith or something like that. There's plenty of royalty-free, not only footage, but also audio available. This is stuff you can download for free and use in perpetuity for absolutely zero cost. So there's plenty of opportunity. Just run a quick Google search. There's a lot out there you can grab for totally free.
Great. Okay, so we do have a kind of pretty exciting announcement at the end of the presentation about social media, so definitely stick around for that. But I'm going to move on to tactic number 2, because I know we could go down a social media rabbit hole very easily on this presentation, but I'm also mindful of your time and why you're here, which is for 3 tactics, not 1. Okay, so okay, Benjamin, I'm going to address your question at the very end, because I think that's a little bit different. So one thing, well, or maybe I'll address it now. One thing I do want to say is your videos can be amplified through paid advertising. And I think this is something that we see a lot if you don't have a big following. If you're not Ali Awad, you don't have 1.4 million followers on Instagram and you're just getting started, how do I get more people to see my videos? You can do some low budget paid advertising to just expand your reach a little bit. So a couple ideas for you. You can retarget. So you can basically take your website traffic, your email list, any social engagers on Facebook or Instagram, for example, even prospects or past client lists, you can upload them all to Facebook, and then you could just put your videos in front of those people. And you can say, hey, let me only spend $5 a day, $10 a day on this. You're getting your content in front of more pretty qualified eyeballs, and more people are seeing it. And it can be a great way to start to build up your following, build up how many people are seeing your videos, and move people from capturing their attention into those other posts that are more designed to convert. And I think retargeting is a really good place to get started with video, and anything that feels very organic, like not too much like an ad, is always going to do pretty well with retargeting. You can also target by very specific geography, zip codes, cities. So let's say you're only surveying, or you only want to serve a very specific zip code, or that's where your attention is for the next quarter. You can just plug that zip code in, and your videos are only going to show to people there. Same thing for demographics. You can do gender, age, there's different interests you can target. All of that is really going to be very specific to your target audience, but there are some ways to get your videos in front of other people on social. And then there's what's called lookalikes on most platforms. So this is where they take an audience that you've already created. Let's say it's your website traffic, let's say it's your email list, or maybe it's prospects and past clients. And they will say, okay, what are the patterns between these people, and show to people who look like that audience. Now, I think you need from my standpoint, you need a decent size audience to create a solid lookalike. So I wouldn't do that until you had all of this other stuff working pretty well for you. Okay, so Benjamin, I'm going to probably ask you to explain a little bit more at the end of the presentation so we can talk about Facebook banning your ads, because there's a few questions for me to ask about that. Okay. Okay, so on to tactic number 2, client testimonial videos. What I love about this is it doesn't have to involve you, the attorney, at all. And it can be handled over Zoom. Nothing, in my opinion, these don't have to happen in person anymore. And I think Cara and Mike would agree. So many people are used to Zoom format. You can have a pretty professional video with some editing recorded over Zoom. So it makes it really easy for your past client. And your staff or James Amplifier, which we can talk about at the end, but can set up the interview, can facilitate the interview, and can edit and distribute. So this, all you really have to do is make sure your client's super happy. And from there, you can then say, how can we take that very positive feedback and turn it into a marketing asset that we can use over and over and over? And I think you'd probably agree, but past clients explaining how you help them is super powerful social proof. And it's just like if a friend recommends something to you versus you getting marketed to by the brand, you're more likely to trust your friend, and it's easier for you to say yes on the back end of that. It might take more time if you're just getting marketed to by a brand, right? So this is what a past client testimonial does for you. And ideally, you are building up a large library of them. You don't have just one, you don't have just two, you're building up. Every time you have a really positive feedback, you record a testimonial. And then that way, it's pretty hard for the competition to build up that same library as quickly as you are. So when you make this a part of your marketing machine, your marketing system, you are just setting yourself up for really great long-term success. And you are using your past clients to attract the same type of cases you want to keep bringing into the firm. So you can be really choosy. Maybe you've had a great piece of client feedback, but that's not the kind of case you want to keep bringing in. So you might record something, but edit out some of the pieces that talk about the type of case. And you're really just trying to say, hey, look how happy they were with my service, but you're not talking about this case specific. So, you know, again, I think a video testimonial is more compelling than a written testimonial. You can convey a lot more information in the same amount of time. And people can see, oh, a real person hired this attorney, right? It's not just a doctored testimonial. I don't really know who this person is. I don't know anything about them. You're building more trust with that video testimonial than you are with a written testimonial. So you can use these videos so many places, which is also what I like about them: on your website, in your emails, on social media, on YouTube, on landing pages, and pay-per-click and social ads. The options for these type of videos, in my opinion, are endless. You can even follow up with a one-on-one with a prospect and say, hey, I know we were talking about your case, just wanted to send you this video, which is a similar case that I've handled, and you can hear directly from the client what they thought of my work. So I just think these are so powerful, and I think everyone should be doing them no matter what. And I don't think there's an excuse not to, or at least there's no time excuse not to, because you don't have to be involved. Cara, can you talk a little bit about how you see attorneys using client testimonial videos right now and what you think is so great about them?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're right, Lauren. We don't have to convince attorneys that testimonials are like marketing gold, but they're certainly tough to, it's sort of tough to build that growing collection of the fresh testimonials, especially if you don't have some sort of system in place, some sort of coordinated effort. So, you know, work it into your existing workflow, you know, as you wrap a case. This is just part of, you know, what you're doing. Many of the, you know, law firm websites that I look at might have some written testimonials. Maybe they'll have one or two dated video testimonials here and there, but it's very rare that I come across the fresh, the detailed, the varying, client video testimonials. And you really do want, whenever possible, sort of detailed testimonials from clients who sort of faced varying challenges, assuming that you want more of those types of cases, right? Varying legal situations and sort of people from varying demographics too. So the idea is that you want prospects to basically see themselves in these testimonials, right? And nothing is more compelling than that. But it can certainly take some time and some dedicated effort to collect these testimonials. So to Lauren's point, if this is going to work, more than likely it can't be on your plate as the attorney. You need someone in the office, you need us, someone who can really help you. And then really, putting those testimonials out there, everywhere you can, as Lauren says. So I think there's a ton of opportunity. I don't think very many small law firms are doing this, primarily because of the time that it takes. But when you wrap a case and you think that person would make for a good, client testimonial. And then it's about asking some direct, pointed questions to make sure that you are pulling out a compelling 1 to 2 minute testimonial or whatever it might be. So I do think there is a ton of opportunity. I think it's a missed opportunity in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and I think there's so many ways you can amplify the reach of that too with paid advertising, where let's say someone visits your website, you employ that retargeting, and maybe 3 or 4 testimonial videos follow them around the web, right? So you're staying top of mind, and they're seeing from other past clients how you help them. And in my opinion, the best time to capture these videos is right when the case has closed or shortly thereafter, when everything's fresh in the past client mind. You don't want to wait 6 months or a year and then someone's asking them questions and they don't really remember, or the details are a little fuzzy. So that's why I like to think about building this into your marketing system. Like, how does this happen systematically without you involved?
Yeah, I mean, for a personal injury firm, right, an excellent time would be when they receive, right after they receive that settlement check, for instance, right? I mean, they have such a positive, outlook on, of course, the whole process has been, probably rather arduous. They've been having ups and downs, but if you really, get them at that high point, I mean, it'll just make for, even more compelling narrative.
Amazing. Okay. So our last tactic for today, tactic number 3, is automated follow-up. So I believe, and I know Karen might believe this, but every firm should automate the follow-up to their undecided leads. So meaning someone's interacted with your firm in some sort of way, but they haven't yet decided to use you. So there's lots of studies in the marketing world about how long it takes for people to make a buying decision. But in general, they say it's somewhere between 6 to 20 touch points. That's a lot of touch points. And if you have to do that manually for every lead that comes your way, like, that's just not a good use of your time, nor quite frankly is it feasible. Like, I can't imagine that every one of you here on this call is going to reach out to someone 20 times to move them to the next stage. So by automating this, you take a really important task off your plate, but it gets done. And if you're not currently automating your follow-up, I would just say, like, you're in good company. I don't think many people do this. And I don't see, not just law firms, but I don't see many businesses do this. So this is also a really great way for you to stand out and stay top of mind, because it creates a really great first impression that you are going to take care of this individual every step of the way during the process. You're not just going to leave them out there hanging, not hearing from you because, you had a call and then 3 months go by, right? So the other thing about this is it prevents this, what I call buy now or goodbye forever approach. So often we say, hey, if you're not ready to buy today, then I'm just going to ignore you. And that's really not what we want to do. Most of the time, someone just needs a little more information, a little more time, a combination of both, and or their pain point needs to become a little more painful. So typically a prospect is going to choose someone to help them unless they're just not qualified for legal help or for your firm to help them. So we want you to be who they hire and not someone else. And it's so easy. Think about all the messages we get bombarded with every single day. It's so easy to forget who you talk to, especially if someone's talking to multiple firms. They may not even remember your name if you don't automate the follow-up. So this really allows you to, again, convey your authority and expertise, show them valuable case studies on, help them see themselves in your past clients, and convince them essentially that you are the right person for them. So this study is a little bit old, but that being said, in general, nurtured leads produce an average of 20% increase in sales opportunities. So think about if just adding automated follow-up added 20% more sales to your firm. Like, what would that mean? 20% more clients. What would that mean to your firm? I'm imagining it would mean a whole lot. So this isn't, once it's implemented, it's not hard. The hard part is creating the content to follow up with them. So, and I have something for you at the end of this presentation also on that. So I will let you know that. But, you know, in my opinion, you have two options. You can manually follow up with all leads, which I think is really hard to scale. And it shouldn't necessarily be you doing it. So I feel like if you're going to manually follow up with a lead, they've got to be really hot. Like they're almost ready to pull the trigger and they just need, you know, a little one-on-one attention from you. But everyone else, I think, should go through this automated follow-up. That's a one-to-many approach, which means you create it once and it goes to many, many leads. It's easy to scale, and I think it's great for warm leads and also for past clients who might refer you to family, friends, and other people in their network. So we already talked about this, but Cara, maybe you can speak a little bit about what you feel is important in an automated follow-up for a law firm.
Yeah, and Lauren, you know, I always say that this tends to be the lowest hanging fruit for many small law firms because, you know, like Lauren so clearly laid out, if you ignore, you know, all those prospects who don't immediately sign, that's a huge, huge opportunity. And, you know, I know often I talk to attorneys who say, if that prospect doesn't sign on the phone with me at that time, or if they come in and they don't sign right away, you know, there's nothing else we could possibly do. You know, I close 100% of the appointments or the calls that I take. So if for some reason, you know, they didn't sign up, then there's no way that they're signing. That's just untrue, you know, and it really is, you know, Lauren makes the point. There's of course some time investment at the onset, right? But it's all about putting this automated sequence in place that educates, you know, same things we've been talking about throughout this whole presentation, right? Showcases your expertise, conveys your caring, and really just keeps you top of mind with those prospects who may be meeting with several attorneys who are likely not providing any sort of follow-up, right? So you're the one that's top of mind. You're the one that's been providing valuable educational information along the way. You're the one that's been answering their questions. So of course, when they are ready to retain, when they do need your services, you're top of mind and you're the one that they'll be, you know, reaching out to, of course. So that you don't need to overthink this sequence. It can be a series of frequently asked questions. That's a great way to go about it. Just don't, you know, just keep it educational, keep it valuable. Don't, you know, just keep bombarding them with appointment nudges, right? There needs to be some additional value. There needs to be some reason for them to continue to open these emails and read them and keep you top of mind. But once it's in place, it can really be used year over year over year with maybe just some minor tweaks, if that, you know, as long as you're setting it up kind of in an evergreen way that, you know, doesn't require those updating, it will really, you know, pay dividends year over year. So absolutely, like if you do one thing, you should have an email, a nurturing sequence to your prospects set up. That's what I would recommend for sure.
Yeah, and I'll just say, unlike social media, this doesn't have to be entertaining and educational. It just really has to be educational and add value. So it's an easier, I think, concept to wrap our brains around in terms of what am I going to put in front of people, right? It's let me answer their questions, let me show a case study, let me send them an educational video, and then let me remind them here's a place to book an appointment. Okay, so before I head to the next section, does anyone have questions about automating their follow-up? And I'd just be curious, with a show of hands, does anyone already have this in place? And just with a quick yes or no in the chat. And while I'm waiting for that, I'll just encourage you, the follow-up can happen over email. It doesn't have to happen anywhere else. If you wanted to, you might have some SMS follow-up, but I'd say that's pretty advanced and not necessary for most firms, in my opinion.
So Lauren, law firms can just use something like MailChimp or their CRM or to set things up, right?
Yeah. MailChimp, ConvertKit, Aweber, Infusionsoft, whatever you have. Yeah. Okay, so David's asking, would you recommend automating our follow-up via a newsletter? Okay, so I think of these as two different things. So basically, a newsletter to me is something that you're sending out consistently every month, every week. And it's what I would consider like date triggered, meaning you're sending it on a specific date and it's a timely topic. An automated follow-up for me would be something that is behavior triggered. So someone downloads a free book on your website and then they receive an automated series of emails, or they book a sales appointment with you and then they receive an automated series of emails on the back end of that because they haven't yet signed with you. And so a newsletter everyone on your list receives at the same time, where an automated follow-up, Cara might enter that today and then I might enter it 5 days from now, but we're both going to get the same 5 emails just at different times. So that's how I would answer that question, David, but I would recommend having both. And there's a couple different ways you can do that, but essentially you have an automated follow-up for warm leads that are coming through a lead magnet, hot leads that are coming through sales appointments, and then a newsletter on the back end of that. And your newsletter may not be just to leads, it may also be to past clients. And Tom, you're working on it with ActiveCampaign. Great, that's a great software. Okay. So Cara, do you have some thoughts on the newsletter versus automated follow-up? I know you're seeing a lot of attorneys do newsletters, what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think they both have their place, right? But they are two very different things. Newsletters they're old school, but they're so great for keeping in touch with those past clients for referral purposes. So I would sort of, if we're prioritizing, I would certainly prioritize that timely automated lead follow-up, and I would put newsletters, below that, whether you're sending, just an email newsletter or even a print, you're printing and mailing a newsletter. Newsletters certainly have a place. The vast majority of the attorneys I talk to either have tried newsletters in the past, they want to provide a newsletter, or they are currently. So it's just a nice way of staying top of mind with those past clients, someone that you more than likely had a previous relationship with.
Maurice, I see that you've raised your hand. I'm going to get to you fairly soon here once we get to the Q&A, but if you want to drop your questions too in the chat, that would be great as well. So we've covered 3 tactics right now that don't require much of your time. So we've talked about short social media videos, which you are going to batch in order to be efficient with the time you have. Then we have client testimonials, which really don't have to include you at all. And then we have automated follow-up, which may require you a little bit for the initial content creation, but beyond that can really run without you. So you guys can take this, you can run with it yourselves, but we also have a service called James Amplifier that can help you with all 3 of these tactics, and I will let Cara and Mike speak to the service and what it includes.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just keep this brief because Lauren really did cover, some of the primary elements that, we wanted to sort of educate you on these elements, but, just full disclosure, we include them all in our Marketing Amplifier program. So certainly videos are a huge feature, a huge part of the program. We provide all the support you need, the topics, the scripts, if you prefer sort of higher level bulleted talking points, whatever level of support you need, we provide. Then we're actually calendaring regular 30-minute monthly shoots with you over Zoom, just like what we're doing now. You sit in with one of our video directors. We make sure you look good, your background looks good, you sound good, your lighting's okay. And then we guide you through the shoot. Again, in 30 short minutes, we're collecting all the footage we need to create monthly custom videos for you. And we're handling everything else, of course. So of course, the editing, we're adding, depending on the type of video that we're shooting, we're adding our content, some really nice looking B-roll, some slides, creating super professional videos that you and your prospects will certainly be impressed with. So a big part of it is just having that dedicated time every month to shooting the videos. I can't tell you how many attorneys I talk to every week that tell me, oh, I've shot a couple videos and I'm dealing with pressing client matters, and I just can't get around to it. Well, we hold you accountable to it, right? We love to have a standing meeting with you every month, ideally, something like maybe the third Friday of the month at 10 a.m., that's the time that you have to jump on for 30 minutes. And then we handle everything else. We're posting the videos to your website. We're sharing them automatically on social media. We're really getting them out there in any way that we can. So video is a huge part of it. Specifically, we're helping you, of course, answer common questions through videos, but, further, we're helping you shoot videos that really do kind of bring down some of those walls and make the whole process more approachable, make you more approachable. You describe what attracted you to the law, what attracted you to your specialty, sort of some of the mission behind the work that you do every day, who you are as an attorney, who you are as a person. We help you describe and outline some past cases with varying fact patterns, so prospects can watch you describe and talk about a case that you recently handled successfully that's very similar to the situation they're going through. Of course, client testimonial videos. Those have been hugely popular for us in the last couple of months. Again, taking that off of your plate. You just let us know. You give us contact information for a client you think would make for a quality video testimonial. We handle everything else. We contact them on your behalf. We jump on a 5-minute Zoom shoot, ask them some pointed questions, really pull out a compelling video testimonial that is, of course, edited and looks really professional. And then you have a growing collection of all varying types of videos, including those testimonials. Set an appointment with me. I'd love to talk about this, or even just your marketing as a whole. There's so much more packed into our program. Monthly newsletters are included. The automated email sequences are included. You get access to massive libraries of consumer books and booklets answering common questions. We brand everything for you. We add lead magnets to your website. I mean, it is a comprehensive package that really fills the gaps that we see. This is not, a replacement to the marketing that you're investing in. It's actually a supplement. It's a wonderful addition to, maybe the website traffic that you're driving or the PPC that you're investing in, right? This just, really amplifies everything else that you're doing. So set an appointment with me. Whoops, excuse me. Maybe someone's calling me now. They just can't wait to sign up. So set an appointment. I'd love to talk. And, I think there's a lot of ways we can take a lot of work off of your plate.
Thank you, Cara. So you guys have, stuck around for this whole webinar, which we really appreciate. I have 2 special announcements to share with you guys, and then I'm going to get to questions because I know we have Maurice and Benjamin and a few other people who have questions in the chat. But first and foremost, we are going to be sending along with the recording of this training, but a free bonus that includes ready-to-use lead follow-up letters that you can use for your law firm. So you can really plug and play these into your systems. It covers 7 specialties. So if you're feeling like, hey, I'm getting really stuck with what type of content to create, we've already created this for you. So keep an eye out on your email. That is going to be coming your way. And then second, we have a very special guest expert webinar happening next week just for you guys, because we've heard so many questions about, hey, we really want some help with social media. And so we have invited Ali Awad to come talk about his social media strategies, how he's built a multi-million-dollar law firm using social media. I had the pleasure of talking to him a few weeks ago. He generated almost 2 million in revenue his first year in his firm without a website and just using his phone and social media. And now he's on track to do 15 million this year. So I think you're going to find a lot of value out of this session. So I will drop this link in the chat in a second so you can register. We will also be emailing it out, but I highly recommend that you come live so you can ask your questions directly to Ali rather than waiting for us to send a replay of the webinar. So if you can show up, I highly recommend it. I think this is a really unique opportunity to learn how someone's taken a quote unquote boring niche, personal injury, and done really well with it over social media. Okay, so that being said, I am going to open up for questions. So let's start briefly with Benjamin, who had a question about his ads. And Benjamin, if you're open to coming on screen or even just audio so I can ask you a few questions, that would be really helpful so I can get the information I need, because over chat is a little bit hard to do. Audio is good. Okay, let me find you here. Oops. Nope, sorry, that was Barry, not Benjamin. Hold on.
Hello?
Hey.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Yes, good. I could share my screen if you wanted me to, but I just have it's actually our ad that Facebook rejected. It just talks about how to defend an assault charge. And there's a cartoon that's not violent or graphic, really. And I don't know if that is consistent with what you're talking about overall today, but I just thought that does happen, and getting it approved seems to be a process.
Yeah, thanks. And it really depends on your specialty, but certain words can trigger Facebook to not approve an ad, certain graphics. And so having someone who understands what words are going to cause problems, what graphics are going to cause problems can really help. But you can request a manual review because right now, all of that is automated. Like when your ad gets flagged, it's an automated process. So you have to request a manual review. Now, sometimes on the back end of that manual review, Facebook will ask you to upload a picture of your driver's license to confirm that you are who you say you are. And it's this big, huge headache. So if you can avoid that whole process, it's just easier to get that ad right the first time. But my guess is, depending on the reason they cited in your ad, that's kind of what you're going to need to fix before you request the manual review. And if you can show them that, hey, we understand the citation and here's the actions we've taken, but sometimes it just gets flagged for no reason, like there's nothing you violated. It's just a kink in their system, if you will, their automated system, and you just have to request that manual review. And within 24 to 48 hours, if they're going to approve it, it happens. But I will say during high traffic times like the holidays, right now we're about to come into Black Friday, we're about to have all the Christmas and Hanukkah kind of sales that are happening, that review can take longer. So without knowing the specifics of your ad, it's hard for me to say, but it is something to just be aware of, that the language you're using in an ad can trigger something.
Yeah. It's a small cartoon that says, are you about the, are you this, are you that, make these arguments. And that's all that's there. I mean, there's nothing at all. It's not even a sexual assault, not even the word sex is in there. It's just an assault, general assault charge. And then I had another question about the testimonials too, which is that, a lot of our clients are unwilling to do that, especially with their name or their face on it, especially if it was something very serious. Any suggestions?
Cara, I'm going to let you take that one.
Yeah, Mike, I think yeah, we've done this recently. I'll let Mike take it.
Yeah, so I think first of all, you'd be surprised how many people actually are willing. We have shot past client testimonial videos for criminal defense clients, bankruptcy clients with matters that you would feel they would be embarrassed by. We have used their full face, we have used their full name. That being said, there are a certain subset who certainly won't feel comfortable on camera with that type of thing. You know, now we're starting to maybe manipulate the audio a little bit, or maybe blur their face, or just simple audio transcription, right? They don't need to necessarily show their face for it to be powerful. We talked a little bit earlier about you as the attorney filming a video where you sort of just speak and then, you know, it's just your voice and still explaining. That is still powerful. So if that person isn't comfortable, there are ways to get around it. And certainly we would be able to help with that in terms of getting a production that they feel comfortable with.
Okay.
And to that end, Mike, how are you guys overlaying audio on top of a kind of something visual that keeps attention, so it's doesn't just feel like an audio file?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. We talked about, I think you actually mentioned it, but you know, there's stock footage, there is motion graphics. We want to keep the viewer engaged as much as possible. If you're talking about something you want to deploy on social, right, it needs to be engaging and not just an audio file with a transcription. But there's a lot we can do to make that video sort of not entertaining per se, but at least engaging to the point where people will want to watch it, because we don't want people's eyes to glaze over. We don't want them to tune out. We want them to connect with this person who's telling them about a fact pattern that may be very, very similar or exactly the same. So those are the type of, you know, different styles of videos that we can help create while using just a simple audio file.
If I share my screen, I can actually play a sample really quick. Oh, just Lauren, if you could. Cool.
Sorry,
no.
Cara.
It's not a big deal. If not, we could always just send this. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll play this real quick.
This was the first time I've ever gotten in trouble. I didn't know what to search for as far as help with my situation. I was able to find Right Legal Group. As soon as I spoke to someone there, they reassured me that everything was going to be okay. A lot of those worriedness that I had was definitely taken away. Like, I didn't have to think about it anymore. They definitely helped me with the.
Yeah, so you know, that gives you a sense of that's a really great alternative, because, you know, Benjamin, you bring up an extremely valid point.
Yeah, that looks great with the fogged. Yeah, everything's really good.
Yeah.
And Benjamin, are you working with like a vendor for your ads, or someone who can help guide you on the language?
Yeah, we have, in fact, we have Follow the Eyes here, and then we have Social Firestarter in California. And then we have several, but we have obviously you guys as well. So I don't know what we're, I'm fairly new to the firm, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to go with things.
Yeah, I think as long as you have someone in your court who knows that world well, that's going to be the biggest asset you have, because things are changing very rapidly in the ads world, and it's important to have someone who understands those nuances. So I think you're on the right track.
Yeah, thank you for showing that example.
You're welcome. Okay, Maurice, I'd love to answer your question. So are you willing to come on audio or video as well? If you just type in the chat. Okay. While I'm waiting for Maurice to answer, let me just scroll through some of these questions and make sure I answered everyone's. So you will receive in an hour or two, depending on how fast this recording populates, a link to this recording, as well as the link to the follow-up series, as well as a link to RSVP for the Ali Awad training. And then, of course, if you have any questions, please reach out to Cara or Mike or anyone on the team. Is the right email, Mike, hello@jamespublishing.com?
Yeah, we can use help@jamesamplifier.com, actually, if you're a current subscriber. And then I'll drop Cara's appointment link one more time in here if you would like to set an appointment.
Okay, so Maurice, let me see. if I can bring you on. Maurice, I think you might be on your phone, which is why I might be having a hard time bringing you on. Or Cara, maybe because I'm no longer the host because I switched it over to you. Are you able to bring Maurice on?
I don't know. Maurice and I have talked quite a bit in the past. So Maurice, just feel free to reach out. We can chat.
Okay. I want to make sure I answered everyone's questions. I'm mindful we're about 4 minutes over, but if you have another question, just type it in the chat, and we will wait about 30 more seconds to make sure we've answered everyone's questions. Okay. Thank you guys so much for your time today, and keep an eye on your email for the reporting to this presentation.
Thank you, Lauren. Great stuff.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.